ANKI is this app you probably heard of it. You probably saw someone doing ANKI cards, and probably someone even mentioned it to you that this is an app that exists and it works perfectly. And probably you even tried using it, but then you figured out that you have no idea how it works. It doesn't seem to work. It's ugly and it's difficult to use. So you stopped after a week and you never opened it again. And this is a mistake many people do, that they don't have it set up correctly because the app is not friendly to beginners. So we'll go through how to set up the app, how to make basic cards, and how to work with the app as a beginner. So by the end of this workshop, you should be able to make your own cards, do the cards, and have the ANKI set up in a way that you can keep doing ANKI and not quit after a week. I'll be going in sections, and if you have any questions, you can, I'll ask you to ask your questions after I go through the sections, so we don't interrupt the lecture. We don't interrupt the lecture by random questions in the middle of sentences. So if you have a question, either write it into chat or write it down and ask it later. So let's get to it. I'll share you my screen. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so you can see this app. It's for you, it's probably in white. I just have it in dark mode. That's not important. If you have it in white, it's the same app. So it doesn't look really pretty. It's really ugly. It kind of looks like something our uni you would use for exam sign up. So it's not friendly, but we'll have to get through how what all these buttons do and how you make cards, how you organize them. So let's start with the organization. So the first thing is we need to answer the question, where should we put the cards? Like, where do the cards live? So it works similar to a folder, that you have a folder and then the folder can have subfolders, and every subfolder can have its own subfolders and so on and so on. So in this case, it works similarly. It's just not called folders, it's called decks. So the first thing we'll do, we'll create a deck. So you push this button on the bottom in the middle that says create a deck. And we're going to name the deck. And since this is an event, let's call the deck events. So once you create the first deck, this is a space you can put your cards into. But usually you don't want all your cards in one big deck, and you want to structure it. You want to put it into subcategories or subdecks. And to create a subdeck, we'll have to go to the upper row, and the second button says add. When you click on it, you see this. This is how you make cards. We will not be making cards just yet. So you see this form saying deck, and it says default. So you click on it, and now you see the default deck, and now you see the deck we just created called events. So if you click on events, then click on add, you can use double column or just not semicolon, the other one. And when you write it twice, if you can see it, and you can add a subdeck. So if we add workshop here and click OK, and we can close this window, a little plus appears to the left of the events of the first deck. And when we click it, we can see that a subdeck named workshop was created. And this works infinitely. So if we go to add again and click on the deck selection and click on events workshop and add again, and we do this again and use a subdeck name of intro and click OK, close this window, then another plus appears next to the workshop. And now we can see that we have a deck named events. It has a subdeck named workshop, and that subdeck has its own subdeck named intro. And of course, you can have multiple subdecks within a deck or a subdeck. So we can once again go to add. We add another subdeck, but instead of adding a subdeck to the intro subdeck, we can just say change the intro to outro. And when we click OK and close this, now we can see that we have a deck called events. It has a subdeck named workshop, and the workshop has two subdecks named intro and outro. So this is the structure you will be working in, and you can separate your cards based on topics. So I'll illustrate it on an example. If you're in year 2 and you have a class from physiology and it's a class on EKG, then you would want to add cards to a deck that corresponds to these lessons. So in that case, you would be creating a new deck, which would be called module A, because that's the big subject. Then you would make a subdeck that says cardio, because EKG is part of cardio. It would have a subdeck called physiology, because EKG is under the physiology classes, if I believe. And we would finally add that there's another subdeck called EKG. So, and now we have a new deck that's called module A. It has a subdeck called cardio and a subdeck called physiology. And here is the subdeck called EKG, and here is where you would be putting the cards you would be creating during the EKG lesson. And now this subdeck exists, so if you later on, if you go home and read a chapter about EKG and you learn something new that wasn't mentioned in the class, you can just create new cards and add them straight into the EKG folder, and the new cards made based on your reading will coexist with the cards you created during the lesson. So once you need to find these cards, you'll just go through this free tree, find the EKG subdeck, and that's done. So this is probably everything you need to know on the structure of decks and subdecks. Do you have any questions? I'll give you, I don't know, 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3. Okay, I believe there are no questions. If you have any questions, you can ask later. So now we know where we can put the cards, but we need to learn how to create the cards. So to create the cards, we'll use the same button we used to create subdecks. So that's the add button. And we need to pick where we'll be putting the cards into. So we will click on the decks, so the right button, and we'll pick events, workshop, intro. So that's the deck into which we'll be placing the new cards. And on type, we'll start with the basic. So we'll choose the basic card as the type of card. So the basic card type is pretty much a piece of paper. If you ever used any type of flashcard software, so Quizlet, or you had paper flashcards, this works the same. So you have a front, so that's the prompt for you, and you have back, which is the answer. So in this case, we will create a simple card. When does the ANKI workshop take place? And to make it more clear, we can make this bold and we can underline this. So this is the prompt that we will be asked. When does the ANKI workshop take place? And the back of the card will be 25th of October 2021 at 6 p.m. So this is a basic card. So every time you encounter this card, you'll be asked what's written on front. So when does the ANKI workshop take place? And once you click to see the back, you'll see the correct answer. So to create this card, we just click add. We clicked and now the card exists. let's move on to another type. I'll show you how the cards look later. So another type of card we can learn to make is basic and reversed. So this is a card you will probably not use for medicine much, but it's a useful card for languages. So it works the same. It has front and back, but when you create the card, it creates two cards. So since you need to know some Czech as part of your studies here, we can make the front of the card say dog. And as you all know, the back should say in Czech, basic. So now we have a card that has a front saying dog and back saying basic, which is the translation to Czech. But since it's a basic and reverse card, it means there will be two cards existing. One card will be asking you dog, and you have to provide the answer basic. And there will be the opposite card that says basic, and you have to correctly answer that the translation to English is dog. So we'll create this card also by clicking the add button. The third type of card is a closed card. So this is a bit of a different card because now we are not asking questions per se. We can input statements and just blank out parts of the statements that we want to be tested on. So we can rephrase the question from the first card with the ANKI workshop and when does it take place. So we will phrase it as ANKI workshop takes or is taking place on the 21st of October at 6 p.m. So now we don't have a question, it's a statement. But we want to be asked about the information in this statement. So here we can, for example, if we want to ask about what is taking place on the 21st, we select the ANKI workshop part of the sentence and click on this this logo right here, and it will start looking like this. To make it more clear, we can once again make it bold. And let's also ask about which of October. So once again, let's select that. We can also make it bold. And for time, now we have October, but we want to merge the information. We don't want to be asked separately on the day and the month, but we want to be quizzed on it at the same time. So for this, we probably have to use a keyboard shortcut. So if you press Ctrl Shift Alt C, it will create, it will select the October, but you can see that the number didn't change, that the 21 has a C2 prompt next to it, and October is also C2. This means that both of these information will be part of the same card. But I'll show you how it will look when we do some cards. But the keyboard shortcut is Ctrl Shift Alt plus C. And we can also make it bold. And once again, when we select this, we can use this button and it will be a separate question because it says C3. And once again, we can make it bold. To make it more clear, we can add like hints, but never use specific hints. It should be as vague as possible. So for this ANKI workshop, we can use the same semicolons. I don't remember. Just colons, I guess, and write event. This means this is a hint. If it's behind these four dots, it means it's a hint. We can do the same here where we'll write day, and same here where we'll write month, and here we'll write time. So this is a close card, and this is what you'll be asked for. Like one card will be blanking out this, second card will blank out this, and the third one will blank only this. So here we are encountering a concept of notes and cards. This whole statement is a note. Like this whole sentence with all the blanks, that's a note. And since we selected 3 groups of information labeled C1, C2, and C3, out of this node, we are creating 3 cards. The first card is the C1 card, which will ask us about the event. Then we have the C2 card, which asks about day and month. And then we have the C3 card, which asks about time. The back or extra field, you can add some extra information like don't forget to install ANKI. It's just a note, or it could include an image, or for example, a simple explanation. In case you get the card wrong, you can easily just read up why the card is, why the information in the card is as presented. So this type of card, we can also add it. And the fourth type of card will be very useful for anatomy, but for that we'll need to learn how to install add-ons. So for installing add-ons, I'll ask Emma to post a code into the chat, and you'll need to copy that code.
I'm on it, but if you have it in hand, you can also post it there because I cannot find it right now. I'm so sorry.
All good. I have it. So here's the code, and to add the add-on, we go to Tools on the toolbar, go to Add-ons, and you click on Get Add-ons, and here you paste the code and click OK, and then you'll probably have to restart the whole app. So once again, you go to Tools, Add-ons, Get Add-ons, paste the code, OK. It will probably ask you to restart, so restart. I'll give you a minute to do this, and once you're all restarted, we can continue. Okay, so I hope you have it all installed. So now you install the first plugin, and this is a plugin for special cards. So these cards are useful for anatomy because they allow you to blank out parts of images and it creates a card. So it's useful for images like these. So go onto Google, Google some image from anatomy that has some labels. So I'm picking this one with upper extremity nerves. And when you find the image, click copy. And when you have it copied, once again, you'll go to add, which adds new cards. And now that you have restarted, you should see this new icon to the left, to the right, which says add image occlusion. So click on it. And if you had the image copied, this window will show up and the image you have copied will be present here. So by default, you'll have selected this rectangular tool, and pretty much what you do, you just draw rectangles over each of the labels. So you just click and drag and draw a rectangle above every label. So now you hid all the labels, and we have two options for adding cards. One says hide all, guess one, and one says hide one, guess one. So for this card, we'll use the button hide all, guess one, and I'll show you later what the difference is. So once you have your image picked, copied, and blanked out all the labels, just click hide all, guess one. Once you have done it, it should prompt you on the left lower corner that some cards were added. In my case, it was 5. If you had more labels, it will say more. If you had less, it will say less. So once you have done this, close this window. And let's find another image. So this time I'll use this image of the lower extremity nerves. So once again, we copy the image. We go back to ANKI. Go to add. Go to, once again, image occlusion. And once again, we have this window. So we blank out all the labels. And before we click hide one, guess one, which is the other option we didn't use before, we will go to this tab saying fields. And nothing in this is really important for beginners. The only important thing is this section saying deck. And here you need to switch it to where you want to put it, otherwise it will get misplaced. So right here, let's put it into events, workshop, and outro. So you click this, you can return to mask editor, and this time click the button saying hide one, guess one. So after we have done this, we can once again close this window. And so now we know the structure. We know how to create the 4 basic types of cards. So we know how to do the basic card, the basic reverse card, the closed card, and the image occlusion card. These are pretty much all the cards you will need for creating cards during med school as an ANKI beginner. Like, unless you want to learn more about ANKI, this is all you need in terms of card creating. So let's do some cards so you can see how they look. So this time, you just click on the events and click study now. So here we can see the first card we created. It's the basic card. We have the front, which says when does the ANKI workshop take place. When you click the space bar, it shows you the back of the card, which is 25th of October, 2021 at 6 p.m. So this is the basic card. Then we have the second card, which says dog, which was the front. So when we click, it's a SpaceX. So that was one of this is like the original card, but we should also encounter the reverse card later. And this is the closed card. So this time you can see that we had the statement and something is blanked out, and we have the hint saying event here. So yes, and it's ANKI workshop. And now we can see the reverse card. So we create just one card. It said dog or basic, but it created two cards. And one of it, this is the second one. We saw the first card in the beginning. Once again, this is the close card. And this time you can see that the informations are matched and are part of one question. So it's here together, you have day and month, and it's together. So you need to say both 25th and October as answer to this card. And here you can see the back of the card, which is just a helpful note. And this is the last of the closed cards where it says only the time part of the question, and that was 6 p.m. So, and these are the image occlusion cards. So these are the ones we created with the button saying hide one, guess one, which means that all the labels but one are visible. So you can see what's here, what's here, what's here, what's here. And this one is hidden. And this is the information the card is asking you about. So when you click the spacebar, it just shows this one label that was covered. And this works for every one of them. So this is how the cards look. But the thing is that we also created the cards that were hide all guess one, but since we didn't check the deck field in the image occlusion window, they got misplaced and they are in this default deck. So it's probably in the default deck even for you. So once you click on default, and we can once again study now, and here are the cards from hide all guess one. So this time all the labels are covered, so you cannot see any of them, but one of them is highlighted, and that's the one the card is asking about. These cards are more useful for an anatomy because you cannot just deduct what the last covered thing is by the other things surrounding it. So these cards are, in my opinion, much more useful when you just hide everything and are asked only about one of the labels. But these cards work the same. All are covered, and one of them is the question. So we did some cards. And do you have any questions? So now you should be able to create a deck, subdeck, create the 4 types of cards. That's all you should know by now. Any questions? Okay, so let's continue. So this was the easy part of ANKI. The difficult part of ANKI is setting up the deck settings, because if you don't set up the decks correctly, it will not work. It will be frustrating. It will take too much time and you're gonna quit very quickly. So now I'm gonna show you how to set up the decks correctly so you can use it efficiently and hopefully continue using ANKI for the rest of your studies. So for doing deck settings, we'll be changing the settings on the events deck. So we'll click on this cogwheel right here and click on options. This window will show up, and this window contains all the settings for the deck. So we'll go through them step by step and learn what they do and how you should set them. So as you saw when we were doing the cards, under the card there were 4 buttons. One said again, the second one said hard, the third one said good, and fourth one said easy. These buttons are always there, and to set the intervals by which every time you make a card, every time you do a card and you get it right, it will be presented to you at a later date. And if you get it correct that time, it will be presented to you at an even later date. So it means that if you see a card today and you click good, you're gonna probably see it on the next day. But if you click good on the like tomorrow, then the next time you're gonna see it, it's gonna be in 3 days. And if you say good even then, it's gonna be 5, and so on and so on. And eventually you're gonna get to a point where you see the card once every 3 months or so. So, but it's very important to have the interval set correctly. So the steps for the first number in this column is the number that will be number in minute that will be on the again button. So if you get a card wrong, how early you want to see it again. For me personally, I use 15 to 25 minutes. I think you should keep it somewhere between 15 minutes and 30 minutes. So let's put, for example, 15 here. So this means that if you have a card, you answer wrong, then you're gonna see it in 15 minutes the soonest. The second number is the number that will be on the good button. That's the third button. That's the button you should be hitting most of the time. So on the good button, I prefer to see the card. If I get it right the first day, I just prefer to see it on the next day. That means that you need to learn this magical number called 1440 minutes, which is 1 day. So this setting means that I get a new card. If I get it wrong, I'll see it in 15 minutes. If I get it right, I'll see it on the next day. And from there on, the algorithm takes over and it will tell me when to see the card again. So this is one of the settings. But some people prefer to see the card twice the first day. So in that case, you can add a middle number here. For example, 120, which is 2 hours. So now it means that if you get a new card and get it wrong, it will be the 15 minutes because that's what on the what's set on the again button. But if you click good, you're gonna see it in 2 hours or 120 minutes. And if you click it good even after the 2 hours, it's gonna show up to you the next day, which is the 1440 minutes. I myself prefer to set it like this because I don't think it's useful to see the new card twice a day, even if you get it correctly, and eventually it's gonna start taking a lot of time. So this is the basic stepping. Honestly, I wouldn't add steps beyond this. Like I wouldn't add a step like this, that I wanna see it the next day and then in 2 days. I think it's not useful and the algorithm is good enough after the interval of 1 day. So I would say the maximum number you should input here should be 1440. So that's all we need to know about steps. Ordering, almost always use the show new cards in random order. The only exceptions are, once again, language decks. Some language decks can be ordered based on difficulty. So that means that if you order it in order added, the cards will be coming to you from easiest to hardest, but this doesn't apply to medical decks because they are just all difficult. So we'll keep it at random. New cards a day. This is the measure of how many cards, new cards you will be presented each day. What's manageable, I would say long term, if you want to do it like all year, like you want to do ANKI all year, then I would say a reasonable maximum is 150, but you should spread it out across all the subjects and all the decks. And 100 is, I would say, also good. It's doable. You can do it every day. If it's set to 100, you can learn 100 new cards every day and you will not end up having a billion cards. But if you forgot about an exam and you need to cram for probably like 2 weeks, you can get away with 250. but that's pretty extreme. You'll be doing a lot of cards every day, but you are able to cover a lot of cards in 2 weeks by this, but this is not sustainable in long term. So for our case, let's set it to nice 100. Further, graduating interval. Graduating interval is pretty much the next interval after your good interval. So I usually keep it at 3. It pretty much means that I get a new card, I get it right, it will show up in a day. And if I get it right even on the next day, it will show up in the graduating intervals, which is in my case 3 days. And then we have the easy interval, which depends on how difficult you find the cards, but I keep it between, if you have easy cards, you can push it all the way to, I would say, 7 days. And if you find the cards difficult, maybe keep it at 4. And I use this for cards that are really easy, that I see a new card and I consider it to be very easy. I just click easy, and that means that it will show up next time in 4 days. So it allows you to skip ahead and have the card show up not as frequently. So the easy interval is the number that will show up on the 4th button, which is labeled easy. And the hard button at all times is just half the amount of the good button. So the 4 buttons, based on these settings, the again button will be 15, which is this first number. The third button, or the good button, will be 1 day or 1,440 minutes. The hard button will be half of that. You can calculate that yourself. And the easy interval will be 4 days, or let's say 5 days. Further, their starting ease, keep it at 250. Anything that has percentage in ANKI app, don't mess with it. It will just, it can mess up the algorithm. So unless you are a pro user and you really know what the numbers mean, don't touch the percentage values. Just keep it at 250. And the last check mark is bury related new cards until next day. I prefer to keep this checked. This means that if you have one node, and within the node there are, for example, 3 cards, and you don't want to see these cards in succession because you could answer the next card by just seeing the previous card. So this means that if you have multiple cards stemming from the same node, if you see one of those cards, like I see one of the cards today, that means that the remaining 2 cards are automatically postponed to the next day, so I don't see them in succession. It's useful, otherwise you can just cheat the cards because you'll see the correct answer to the next card in the previous card, so keep it checked. So that's everything you need to know about new cards. Then let's get to reviews. The only rule about the reviews in ANKI that you need to follow in med school is that you'll write 9, 9, 9, and 9 for maximum reviews per day. This means that no matter what happens, every day you do all the reviews you have due that day. This is the best way to use ANKI. If you don't do all the reviews during the day, you will get behind. So how it works, that if you, for example, if we set this to 500, and for example, today I had 600 cards due, that means that the 100 cards that are over the limit will be postponed to the next day. But if I also had 600 cards due for the next day, I have now 700 cards due for the next day. But once again, I'll do only 500. So now 200 cards are overdue. So this way you can get behind. So you can, you should keep this at max and just do all the reviews you have due that day. So once again, here we have percentage, so we don't touch that. And maximum interval, that's the, as you are getting the cards correct, you will see them more or less frequently and less frequently, but there's this property called maximum interval, which is pretty much the maximum time between you seeing the same card twice. So if you get the card good repeatedly and you just know the card, at some point it's good to keep the spacing fixed. So for me, I keep it at 180, and this is probably the ideal interval for med school. This means that if I get the card correctly, and the interval starts increasing, eventually the card will just hit the wall, and every time I click good, I will see it in 180 days. And after 180 days, if I click good again, it will once again show up in 180 days. Of course, you can extend it to, I would say, 360. You have to realize that if you extend it to 1 year, you're gonna forget more of the cards. But if you don't find the cards that important, you can put it on 360. If you go beyond the year, you're gonna forget the cards very quickly, and you're gonna forget many cards. So if you can keep it at 180. Hard interval, once again, percentages, so don't touch it. And here we have the same checkbox, bury related reviews until the next day. It's the same as with new cards, so we want to check it because we don't want to see the identical card twice in a day. So that's all you need to know concerning reviews. Lapses. Lapses are the cards you have already learned, but this time you didn't know the answer and you clicked again. So all I said here is pretty much the first step, which I keep around 15-25 minutes. It's the same, which means that if you have a learned card, you click again. This is pretty much just the number on the again button for a learned card. So it means that I knew this card for I was clicking good, and once suddenly I don't remember it, I click again, and since this number is 15, I'll see it again in 15 minutes. And don't touch the new interval, minimum interval, I keep it at 1. Leech threshold at 8 is good. The important thing is leech is pretty much a property of a card that it's a card you're doing poorly on. So if you repeatedly click again on a card, eventually it's going to become a leech. The important thing about leeches is that you keep it this leech action at tag only, which means that the cards that you are bad at will just be marked with a tag saying leech, so you can find the cards you are worst at. Because if you set it to suspend card, it means that if you do a card poorly, it's going to disappear and you're not going to learn it. So every time you use it, use the tag only leech function. So that's all we need to know about lapses. In general, you don't need to change anything here. And description, you can write some description here, but it's not very important. So to save these settings, we click OK. And now the settings were applied to this deck. But what's good about the deck settings that they can vary between subdecks and decks. So for example, we can go to the cogwheel of the intro subdeck and also go to options. And instead of using this default settings we just created, we can click on manage, add, and we can make intro settings groups. And here we have we can set it the same as previously, but we can change it. So for example, we can say that the cards that are in this intro deck will have intro settings. And here we only want to make 20 new cards a day. So we can change it. And that means that from this intro deck, we'll be doing maximum of 20 new cards per day, while the cards that are in events, we will be doing 100 new cards per day as we set it previously. So now we probably know everything about creating cards, decks, subdecks, and deck settings. If you use these deck settings I gave you, it should work fine for you. So once again, any questions? If there are no questions, we can go to browser. So you go to the upper row and we will click on the browse function and we can maximize it. So browser is pretty much your tool for searching for cards, ordering cards. You can filter the cards, find correct cards, correct them, but you need to know some basic functions. So here you can see we have this deck folder, and here we can see the decks we created. So we have events and module A. So in events, we have the Subdeck workshop, and we have the subdecks of the Subdeck intro and outro. And as we were adding the cards, we now can see that when we click on the Subdeck intro, we see the cards we created and put into intro. So there's the dog card, we have the basic card and the close card. So we were adding them to the intro subdeck so we can find them there. On the other hand, the image occlusion lake cards are here, and we added them here. But the image occlusion arm cards got misplaced because we didn't pick the deck. And as we discussed, they were left in the default deck. So we can see them here, but we don't want them here. We want to move them into the outro deck. So to do that, you just select the cards you want to move, click right click, and you click on the first option saying change deck. And now you can pick the deck you want to move them to. So we can choose events, workshop, outro. So now it's here. So now when we click on outro, there are the leg cards, but also somewhere should be the arm cards. They're also here. So now we successfully moved the cards. Another thing is suspending cards. This means the card will not be deleted, but it will disappear from your reviews, that you will not see the card again when you are doing reviews. But if it's like a temporary deletion that can be reversed. So for example, if you deem this card with dog too easy for you and you don't want to see it again, you can once again select the cards and click right click. And here you can see the option toggle suspend. And if you click it, it will change color, and now the card is suspended, so you will not see it again. And you can also reverse it. So if you select the both cards, toggle suspend, and now they're normal color and they're back into your rotation. So this way you can, for example, the cards from subjects you have already finished, you can just suspend the cards and not do them anymore. Another function you can do is searching for cards. So for example, we can go to deck. So this is all cards and we want to find the dog card. So we just write in dog and it shows us the two cards that mention dog. And maybe we want to mark these cards so they are better distinguishable from the others. So if we select them, we can also go to the flag option and pick a color. So let's pick, for example, red color. So now we flag the cards. This is pretty much just the marking as if you marked a corner of a regular paper flashcard. And this allows you to find the cards through the flags. So if you go to the flag section and to red flag, you can see these two cards based on their flag status, which is here. So flag flag being 1 is red, orange is 2, green is 3, blue is 4, and 0 is no flag. Of course, we can combine the searches. So for example, we can make search in deck events, and we can add flag 1. And this way, we combine the search for deck events. So it only takes cards that are in the deck events, and it only shows the cards that also have the flag 1 or the red flag. And for example, if we put flag 0, which is no flag, now we see all the cards that are here, just not the cards that have the red flag. So this is how flagging works, searching works. And of course you can, for example, you can make, let's say that one of these cards, we're gonna also suspend it. So now it's suspended and also has a flag. So once again, we can search through deck events. We can add flag 1. So now it shows both cards that are flagged red. And we can add is suspended. And now it shows only the card that is red and suspended, and also in the deck events. The commands you can deduct from here. So pretty much the flags you can see here, how the search works. The card state you have is new, is learn, is review, is suspended, is buried. And the same works for decks. So this is how searching in browser, moving cards, suspending cards. Once again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them.
There's a question in the chat saying, when would you flag a card and when would you suspend it?
I personally don't use flagging much. Usually, if I have a card that I intuitively get wrong every time, that if I'm not paying attention, I will get it wrong, I sometimes add a red flag to that. So that means that when I'm doing the card, there will be a tiny red flag next to it, and I will use it as an indication of careful, you get this wrong often. But flag is probably useful for some, if you've, I'm not a person who organizes stuff by color, so I don't use flags much. So I usually use them only rarely as a warning flag. But if you have a reason to separate the cards even by colors, if the deck separation isn't enough for you, you can use it like that. But suspending a card, you use it if you have a card you decide that it's not useful. Either maybe you wrote down a card that is too complicated and you don't like it, how it looks or works, or you created a card that you already had, so you have duplicate cards. So you can just select one of the duplicate cards and suspend it. You will not delete it, it will stay there, but it will not be in your reviews. So you will be not doing the cards, but you can unsuspend it and add it back into the rotation every time. But suspending is usually used for after you finish an exam. So once you pass an exam, you can suspend the cards you had for the exam, unless you want to keep the cards. So usually the suspending is useful for once you are done with the subject, you suspend the cards from that subject so they don't bother you anymore.
I would just add like a super short note that I sometimes flag my cards when it's like work in progress, meaning that I need to get back to that card and maybe edit it or look up some information, for example, when I'm on the go. So for me, it's like warning sign, like you should look at this card later on during the day, for example.
Any more questions? If not, let's return to the home screen. So let's close the browser. And we are back on the home screen. And the rightmost button here says sync. So if you click on it, sorry. If you click on it, on sync, this will pop up. If you click on this link, you can create an account. This account, once you log in, allows you to back up your ANKI, which means that if your computer broke, you can just download all your progress back. So this is very useful if you plan on using ANKI long-term because you don't want to lose your progress in ANKI. And it's also useful for syncing up your phone or tablet with your computer. So you can do cards on the go on your phone and then sync them up with your computer. So both devices have the same set of cards, but you can do them independently. You can use it for free on Android, and on Apple, it's, I think, 25 euros for the app. But if you find yourself using ANKI long-term, then it's probably worth the price of 25 euros. You're gonna spend many hours in it, and it's much more pleasant to do it on a phone when you are traveling. You don't want to always be doing it on your computer. So you also do that through this sync button. So first, just sign up, create an account, log in. You can do that later. And this just allows you to back up all the cards you did onto ANKI servers and download them anytime. And so we will add 2 more add-ons that you might find useful. One of them is this statistics board, or how should I call it? So in this case, I'll once again send you a number.
It's already in the chat.
It's already in the chat, and
yeah.
which one is in the chat?
It's the
which one? Yes, which one is oh, okay, so that's the more overview stats. So once again, use the code, go to tools, add-ons, get add-ons, paste the code, and add this add-on. Once you are done, we will show you what it does. So if you added this add-on, it's called More Overview Stats, and it pretty much means that if you click on a deck, it will give you more information about it. So here you can see one of my decks that I use daily, and here it shows you the split between mature cards, like those are truly learned cards, and young cards, those are cards you are currently learning. Then you see a split between learned, unseen, buried, suspended, total cards, and it tells you in when you will be done with all the cards at your current new card pace. So this is one of the add-ons that I find very useful even for beginners. And we're gonna add even one more, which is called Review Heatmap. So once again, copy the code from chat, go to add-ons, get add-ons, paste it here, add it. If it requires a restart, just restart it. And that will pretty much give you this heat map. So this heat map is the ultimate ANKI bullying tool because it will stare at you every day. And if you don't do your cards, it will look ugly. So it pretty much represents every day by a color. In this case, the more cards I do, the lighter the color is. If it's darker, for example, here, it means I did a few cards that day. So it's a tool for tracking progress, and but mainly it's a bullying tool. It just bullies you into doing cards every day. And here you can see some daily averages, what's your streak, more bullying tools. So if you added this, then you have all the add-ons that you need for starting your ANKI journey. And the last thing is probably statistics, which is the last button we didn't use. And here you can see just the overview, like you see what you did that, like today, you see how many cards await you each day. You can see also the heat map here. Here it's reversed, so dark is many cards, light is few cards. Here you can see your progress over the past, this case month. You can see set it to 3 months or a year, and you can see how much ANKI you have been doing. Here you can see the split of the card state per card, so you can see how many cards are mature, how many cards are learning, how many are new. So you can see how many cards still await you. And here you can see review intervals. That means that how many cards are how much spaced apart. So here you can see that I have over 8,000 cards that are around the 6-month interval, which means that each of these cards, I see them only once every half year. And for example, if you go to the start, here is 700 cards that have intervals between 1 and 5 days. That means that I'll see these cards soon, like within the next 1 or 5 days. This is ease. Don't focus on this. This is just ANKI math, and no one really understands how it works. Here you have a nice hourly breakdown that shows you when you do most of the cards. So for me, it's between 10 and 12. But for someone, it might be later or earlier. Here you have stats on how successfully you get the cards right. And this is how many cards you have added in the past month. And you can change everything from 1 month, 3 months, or all. So this is all you need to know about the statistics. Just don't spend too much time in this window. It's not as useful as doing the actual cards. So I think this is all you need to know as a beginner ANKI user to get started. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If I went over something too quickly, we can go through it again, but you need to request it. So I'm open to questions, and that's it for now.
I will just say that at this point, I will probably turn off the recording so that you feel free, to unmute yourselves and discuss and ask your questions. So that will be all for the recording.